smile like that in the beginning of the next year when we are discussing the topic whether we manage to preserve the communities and self-governance which exists at the level of such communities. You can see now some, I will give you some figures and examples, but I would like to say that as we have warned in the end of the last year, the budgetary decentralization which was offered to us will bring absolutely different results for different levels of self-governance. We can now register that for so-called regional significant cities, this budgetary decentralization brought some additional powers and opportunities. As to the towns and villages, that is approximately half of the country. This second level, for the rest of the communities, this budgetary decentralization is for the worse, has deteriorated the situation, and now you can see. I would like to say that this is the situation as of the middle of January, but the trend, I believe, is more or less the same all over the country. So I would like to talk a little about this slide. The key problem of this type of decentralization is that the kindergartens and the palaces of culture are transferred, will be transferred to the level of the region or district, but the funding will be from the district budget. The fifth part of the district state administrations in Ukraine demand to transfer kindergartens and palaces of culture to the level of the district state administrations. And you can see here 26%. That is actually what was transferred this year. And there are some experts who say, what's the difference whether the kindergartens will be under the district or in the community? But that is very important, basically, because such changes in 2002 were done to the secondary schools, which were financed by the communities and maintained by the communities. We have a special object in Ukrainka that is, in the past, the kindergarten, which is divided between the primary school, which is financed by the district, and the kindergarten, which is financed by the community. But people say, what's the difference? But we need to bring these bureaucrats from Kiev to this school, and they will see the difference. What is the difference between the school, which is supported by the district administration, and the kindergarten, which is supported by the community? Because what is supported by the community is in a much better shape. So they say, you give it to the district. If you don't want to give it to the district, get united with your neighbors. And that is considered to be some sort of a motivation. Now the next slide, you see that because of the conflict, the district administration demands to transfer, and the community doesn't want to do that. Because of that, approximately 11% of communities fail to pass the local budgets. I believe that as of now the situation has changed, especially because the legislator, because of these conflicts, heard that they need to forbid for the districts to accept this structure, and that is the result, the previous results which we saw. when those municipalities who managed to do that, they approved their budgets. In most cases, the total fund was reduced by 3%, but there are communities where it was reduced by 60%, and some increased. We need to have the final information, but what you see on the next slide, you see that again we warned that the single tax, which previously was the main component of the development fund, this is money which we spend for our future and the future of our children. These are capital expenditures, and that means for many years. This development fund, because the single tax was transferred to this fund, was reduced, quite seriously reduced, because in most communities it was reduced by more than 50%. That is more than twice. You understand, thanks to this decision, the budgets became the cash offices, cash desks where the salaries are paid. 18% of the communities registered zero in their budget. That means there's no budget, and that means that the budgets of these communities are the budgets of eating up. This is very bad situation, and this way I would like to say that for that level, the level of the villages and settlements, the budgetary decentralization should be declared as decentralization in converted commas. And we will also have the problem, may have the problem of the 1st of January 2016. What does the state say? The state says that 2015 is a transitional period. The transition to what? On the 1st of January of 2016, in the villages, settlements, and towns of district significance, which will not be able to get merged according to certain standard, will forever lose their delegated powers. The powers for kindergartens, palaces of culture, but all that will be transferred to the level of the district state administration. You know, many people now in expert community, in authorities, start understanding that neither technically nor mentally there will be there will be no voluntarily merging. If this happens, this will be fragmented. Maybe 10-20% of communities in Ukraine will get merged as the state wants it. And there will be the situation when in those which are not merged or united, the self-governance will be exhausted by one function, which is cleaning of territory, arranging the territories, and those who have municipalities with multi-storied buildings, that will be the housing organizations. De facto, we will get the situation when the communities, I'm talking about the towns of district significance, the communities that wanted reforms, those which believe that the future is in the reforms, that they will get additional powers, additional resources, or at least they will get a chance for district administrations not to deter their development. These communities will be in the worst situation, and there is a big threat of that And so the state says, we will, at your level, will be killing self-governance at your level, but if you want to survive in such conditions, then merge. Go to your neighbors, demand from them, convince them, use different technologies, but until you merge with them, you will be under that threat. We believe that this is not the motivation, it's some type of demotivation, in the result of which many of municipal heads made a decision. Maybe it's better to give it away in such a situation, but we need to understand that the community is not a mayor. Community is people who live there, and we understand that for people it would be more efficient when these powers are given to the community but not to district administration. So we say that instead of decentralization that we wanted to have, in fact, we received centralization. Now, somehow, some experts say it cannot be just as you say, we're sure that decentralization is better for you. If you say this is not so, that means that you are speculating politically. That is also the position, and one of the versions of the behavior of the state is to say no. This cannot be true. That's one option, and another option, we heard it from some of the people at the meeting on reforms which was held at the parliament. They say, yes, we understand there is the problem, but let's understand that this is the transitional period. It somehow will settle down. Let us wait. Let's be patient. And the third option that we suggest, to recognize that we do have the problem, and we requested about that at this meeting with the Speaker of the Parliament to investigate this problem, to examine it via local administrations, to collect all the information about what happened at these towns of district significance. There are 269 of such towns, to collect all that information, to evaluate it, and then make a decision on which measures are to be implemented so that this 1st of January 2016, which is a bad situation for local communities, so that this does not happen. We have our own proposals. First, besides asking for statistical data to confirm our words and problems, we suggest we were saying that on the 15th of February, the Verkhovna Rada will introduce new amendments to the budget and budgetary code, and we request to introduce the following amendments: to prohibit to the districts to demand transfer of the educational establishment
to the level of districts first, second, to require that through a budget transfer, the communities will be financed from the districts to the tune that is not less than actual spending in 2014. We have examples, for instance, a city which is a district center that has 3 palaces of culture that previously were financed by the community, and they still belong to the community. In this year, during the transitionary period, these palaces of culture are retained by the city but are financed from the budget of the district. And then the district decides to allocate 14,000 hryvnia for the upkeep of those 3 palaces of culture. So we say that in order to preclude such unpleasant things and the conflicts that arise between municipality and the district administration, we should limit the financing of these sectors with the actual spending of 2014. Besides, we have a more radical suggestion. We suggest that the cities of a district level should be given the status of cities of regional level, and we think that this may become a transitionary period for the formation of new communities. Just imagine, at the moment, there's a community that emerges, a new viable community that has to provide all the services to its residents. They have to form certain departments that operate fire service, schools, hospitals, and a lot of other things. And this infrastructure has to be created and has to be tested so that people in the distance do not feel any problems, so that they know clearly where to go, and there will be an order with the documents. There won't be confusion. So these cities of district level should get the status of the cities of regional level by resolution of the parliament. They should become centers that build up this infrastructure, and then this infrastructure could be used by this merged community that will arise around this city. At any rate, our proposal is, and we sent it to a respective committee of local self-government in the parliament, to do this without any delay, to conduct parliamentary hearings on this problem. On the problem, let's put it like this. In some way, the decentralization at the level of villages and settlements turns out to be centralization. We should gather and involve all the experts, MPs, and the government to discuss this problem and adopt a decision how to find a way out of this situation. We have sent an address not only to the committee but also to all the factions of majority so that they support our address. Besides, we are talking about this budget and decentralization, but like a bird has two wings, there is also a tax reform. And by the way, the introduction of local taxes and the property tax, as in a drop of water, it reflects the correctness of our proposal that the taxes that 100% go to the community should be administered by the community, not by the tax administration, because we are motivated. This is the money of the community, and the community wants this tax to be collected in an exhaustive manner so that people pay it, and we have information on this, so that people see, and we saw this while preparing regulations about the property tax, that the state is not much motivated to go into those problems, as contrasted to the communities that ask many questions, that raise a lot of issues about administering this tax, not only about the rates, but also about registers, which show you at once. We say, are there any registers that will allow us to collect this tax? And they say no. The same applies to land. No register of land, whether it is true. How can we access it? So the situation is rather strange. Those who should live at the expense of those taxes, for instance, in our city, we decided to channel all the money from the property tax to use for roads in our community, so people see where it goes. So the situation is strange. Those people who should use this money have no right to conduct a register and do not have the right to administer the tax. And it happens so that we are given a tool which we cannot use, but we can only wait for a result of someone else using this instrument. So we think that there should be a serious discussion about the transfer of the administering of the property tax and land revenue to the communities that should get 100% of this money. To sum up, we are initiating a Congress of district cities of Ukraine. We will invite top officials and the management of the Association of Cities, our MPs and experts, so that they get an opportunity to listen what is the actual state of things. I understand that every structure and every expert have their own opinion on how this should be, but we cannot substitute this idea for the real situation. And you know, the mayors of those cities are the best speakers on the problems that the local self-government faces now. Another proposal of ours is about the cities that have different status. We think that this rudiment of Soviet era should be discarded. And we have to be clear about what is a city and what is the village. If a community corresponds to the opportunities of a city, then this should be a city which provides all the services for the community. If they cannot do this, then this is a village. And if those villages merge, then this is going to be a big village community, but this which will have the same amount of services and potentials as the city. But so far this is very unjust distribution of statuses. We think that this should go into the past, lapse in the past, and we think that this can become a powerful component of the administrative and territorial reform that we've been talking quite a lot about. But still we don't make any step in this direction. Now, if there are any questions, I'm ready to answer. Any questions, colleagues? I have a question. You have outlined the problem, and you know there are also parameters, and if my contacts, maybe you will have questions later. Which draft of the decentralization, which example of decentralization is best for Ukraine out of those that were held in Europe? Well, we've been talking about this for 7 years, and we were taken to many countries and shown how this should be done. I think that by all comparisons, the Polish example is closest to us. We have many friends there among local communities, and I can tell you that this is a rational example. More than that, of course, as mathematicians say, this is a necessary but not sufficient condition. This was not exhaustive for the success of reform in Poland, but a powerful a lion's share of the changes that we all saw in the neighboring country. And you know, those who are a bit older were able to observe the changes in Poland, and the reform of administrative and territorial structure, I think, provided a powerful impetus for very quick changes in this country. That's why I think we should not invent anything. And I see that the central authorities are going along this way because most of the consultants and advisors are Poles. And the only thing that I may tell you, the Poles are also in agreement. There can be voluntary merger, especially if we have to do this quickly. And why quickly? Because in the autumn this year we will have local elections. And if we cannot create a new basis for these elections, then we will conserve the situation for a long time, for 5 or 4 years. So from the point of view of the reform, from the point of view of an impetus for the development of territories, we have to very quickly discuss this cliché, this template that should lead to the creation of new communities and to create opportunities where they discuss this template in districts to give them the opportunity to make changes, because people where they live see better who they can merge with whom. Then the people, for instance, finally confirm it by the end of summer, for instance, and this should be the basis for new elections in communities that will have a new authority, where the communities all around the country will have the same level of authority. So this is how we see it. Any other questions? No questions? Thank you very much. I hope that the example of Ukraine